Hello friends, and welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny. This is a restorative yoga class, so it's going to be super mellow. The focus today is going to be on hips and low back, so trying to release maybe some built up tension there, or just to create a little bit of flexibility, some movement there. So that'll be our main focus for today. We do utilize props in a lot of the poses, so if you want to take some time to gather a few things, I'll give options for no props, so don't worry if you don't have any items or any substitutes for props around the house. But if you do, gather, one of my favorite props is this bolster. You can also use couch cushions, pillows, a big blanket rolled up. That's just nice for some support, a little lift. It's great for sitting on. Other props are blocks that are good to use. I only have one block, so I also have, you can grab a stack of books or just one thick book that is, comparable to about that size or anything. Just sometimes these are used for filling in space, bringing the ground closer, or again, just for some support there. You also will maybe want to grab blankets of various sizes. I have one over my mat for a little extra cushion. I will suggest having one that's folded up that you can sit on, either that or maybe some pillows. We're going to be doing some forward folding where it's nice to be sitting up on something, getting that little lift. So yeah, take a moment to kind of gather your things, and then we'll meet first in a seated position. So take your time to settle into that, whatever that looks like for you. Just a nice comfortable seat. The legs could be crossed, legs could be extended. You could be sitting feet planted on the ground, knees in towards the chest. You could even sit in a chair if that feels better for you. And this is where a place that it might be nice to sit up on a cushion or a blanket, stack of pillows, something like that, especially if you find that when you sit down, if you want to lengthen up through the spine, you find yourself kind of leaning back or kind of rounding out. This little lift, the cushion underneath the booty, helps to tilt the pelvis forward, and because it creates more space is really what it does. It helps to bring the hips up closer towards the knees and just creates a little more space there. So we can sit a little bit taller. We can, it creates kind of just a little more openness as you work on gaining flexibility. So find your comfortable seat, and what we want to do is find a solid connection to the sits bones. Whatever the sits bones are connected to, have it nice and firm. Both sits bones connected to the earth evenly so that the hips are nice and squared. That's your solid base. And then use that base to sit up nice and tall, stacking through the spine. But nothing rigid, nothing, too aggressive. So feel free to relax in the shoulders, relax in the face. Hands can do whatever. They could rest on the legs, outsides of the body, or in the palms, in the lap. You're also welcome to close your eyes or just simply soften your gaze. Music can be nice, especially in a home practice. There can be a lot of distractions. So if you want to put on maybe some mellow ambient music, if nothing comes to mind immediately, if you're on Spotify, you can go to my profile. I have a bunch of different yoga playlists, some restorative, some instrumental chill kind of stuff. So if you want to put on some music and we're just taking some time to really settle in. As I said, with a home practice, there can be many distractions, so just start to bring a little awareness to your external environment, and knowing that could include sounds that come through, my apartment and my external environment into yours, as well as things within your own home. And just start to kind of accept these things as they are. We can't really do much to change this. I can't go ask the bus to stop driving, or you can't go to your partner next door and tell them to, nicely be quiet. We can't always control what happens in our external environment is the point there, but we can control how we react to it. So this bringing awareness to it, acknowledging, that white elephant in the room, or does it have to be white elephant, or is that just around Christmas time? I don't know. But just acknowledging that there are potential distractions, potential things that draw our awareness away. And as we acknowledge them, maybe that'll make it a little easier to kind of allow them to be a part of that process. So once you've kind of oriented yourself with your external environment, just kind of accepting that as it is, we want to start to draw our awareness inward. That's where the real exploration is going to be happening. The easiest way to connect is first through the physical body. Starting to just notice any aches and pains, any areas of tension or tenderness, anywhere where you feel like you gotta get the wiggles out. Definitely, holding space for any injuries or ailments that you're carrying in the body with you. Another way to connect to the body is through your breath. So starting to acknowledge your breath. Starting to pay attention to it. And if you'd like, starting to deepen it. Expanding out the inhales. Lengthening the exhales. Again, allowing the breath to be another way that we connect to the body, that is just another tool to help us be present, help us come back to our present moment. If ujjayi breathing is in your practice and you'd like to bring that into your restorative practice tonight, feel free to activate that. Activating those muscles in the back of the throat to create that oceanic sound, giving your breath that audible quality, that kind of action. If you are working with ujjayi breathing, we do want to bring that breath in and out of the nose. So that can kind of help to get that activation in the back of the throat. And again, help us, give us that tool to connect to. So we're becoming more aware of the body, of the mind. We've got the external environment, it's there, but we're not focusing a lot of energy there. And then we start to also notice the thoughts, or maybe the thoughts have made themselves very apparent. Recognizing that sometimes our internal environment can be just as chaotic, if not more chaotic, than our external environment. And as we start to notice the thoughts, kind of treat them similar to how you are observing your external environment, allowing them to be a part of the process, acknowledging, witnessing, but not letting them pull you away, not letting them take your full attention. And this is one of the trickier parts of mindfulness, is that watchfulness over the thoughts. So as we start to move through our physical practice, it will be more slowed down. We will be holding poses longer. So we will have physical sensation, but we won't have a ton of physical movement to connect to. So we really need to bring that awareness back to the breath and really bring that awareness to the thoughts. So that's kind of the challenge for today as we move through our physical practice, to stay aware of where the thoughts go and trying to not let the thoughts draw our attention away. Beautiful work. As you continue to breathe, once again, bring your awareness down to the connection to your sits bones. Use that to maybe sit just a little bit taller. Maybe through our opening meditation, you have noticed that you started to kind of slouch down, maybe rolling in, maybe starting to let the head hang. Reestablish that nice tall spine, relaxing in the shoulders, relaxing in the face, and bring the hands to the tops of the thighs if they're not already there. Now with this lengthening through the spine, we're just going to start to circle around clockwise. Now this is moving through the whole upper body. So the hips are squared, the hips aren't moving, so don't let the sits bones lift. Try to keep the knees grounded. And it's your choice. Start off small, subtle movements. But if you'd like to start to take those movements a little bit bigger, your choice how big you take these and to what pace you take these and how you want to link the breath to these movements. So again, just keeping the lower body stable and still, finding that upward body movement and fluidity. And just working through the torso, through the low back, through the hips. Now, if you have any tightness or tenderness, you may be feeling some activation. I most definitely am. When you're ready, just reverse the direction of those circles. So taking it counterclockwise now. Staying aware of the breath. You do want to try to link the breath to the movements just to help keep that awareness a little bit more at the forefront, but it's your choice how you want to do that. Awesome work. Now we'll start to make our way back to a neutral spine. And then we're going to uncross through the legs if they're crossed, maybe shake them out. We're going to plant the feet about hip distance apart. And you can stay, if you're on a cushion or on a blanket and it feels good, you're welcome to stay seated up on that, or you could remove it. So we're going to grab onto the knees and do a few rounds of seated cat-cow. So instead of going in circles here, we're just working through spinal flexion. So on the inhale, we're going to kind of tilt forward through the pelvis. We're going to let the chest come forward, not splaining out through the ribs, getting into a full back bend, but opening up through the chest, drawing the shoulder blades back, little lift in the chin as we arch through the spine. Maybe a little snap, crackle, pop there. And then exhale, taking the opposite movement. So we're drawing the belly in, the chin starts to tuck in, we're separating through the shoulder blades, and we round out through the back as we rock back onto our sits bones, or onto the tailbone. So we'll take a few more rounds like this. Inhaling to open, exhaling to round out. Take as many of these as feels good. I'll give you a little side view here. So we're opening up through the front side of the body and then opening up through the back side of the body. We're tilting through the pelvis as we rock forward onto the sits bones and back onto the tailbone. Oh, fantastic work. All right, now we are going to set up an easy forward fold. We're going to do this with a hip opener, and this is again where it might be nice to sit on a blanket, a stack of pillows, even up on your bolster. The more tightness you have in the low back and in the hamstrings, the more lift you're going to want. So I'm going to bring in my blanket here. Might end up doubling up on that. And what we're going to do with the legs, it's not going to be full on cobbler's pose, and it's not going to be full on, crisscross applesauce. It's kind of going to be right in between. So we are going to let the knees drop open, and we will cross the legs, but not as extreme as you would in, your full easy seat, full crisscross. So we're going to start by bringing the left heel in first, and then the right foot will cross over. But again, there's some space here between the root and the heels. The feet aren't touching like they were in cobbler's pose, so we're not full on like this, and we're not extreme bend with the knees here. They're kind of just a little more relaxed, so there's a little more of an angle in that knee joint here. And then I'd like us to bring in a cushion, some blocks, anything that will add, a good 3 to 6 inches from the ground. And I want us to put that in front of us here. So we've got our cushion lifting up our little, lifting up the booty. We've got our gentle cross of the legs, and then we've got our prop in front of us. Now we're going to lengthen up through the crown of the head. Again, sitting up nice and tall. We want to have that length first. And then we're going to fold forward with that nice tall spine, leading with the heart, letting the hands come to the prop, whatever we have there, blocks, pillows, cushions. And as we fold forward, we're going to start to release the head down, maybe rounding out through the spine, but we want to keep the sits bones grounded. So as soon as you start to feel, maybe the cheeks start to lift or the sits bones start to unground, come back, root back down towards that. So, you may be just, barely folding forward. But again, that's when you can play with the cushion. So if you're finding that, you're still pretty straight up, bring in a little bit more cushion, create more space for yourself here, so that then maybe you can start to bring a little more forward folding. But all we're looking for is some sensation in the outside of the hips and in the low back. So we don't need to go very far. For those of you that may have a little more flexibility, you might be coming down onto the forearms. You can even play, if you want to release through the neck, you can play with your props to bring the prop up towards the head. So the hands, we're having them lifted just so that we're not, forcing ourselves towards the ground. We're not trying to go super, super extreme in this forward fold because we're going to be holding it for a bit here. Now pay attention. You could also bring in a block here, like I said, for the head. So if you wanted, maybe it's up on your prop, or up on your cushion, or on the ground. So to find a release in the shoulders, you could turn the palms up. If you want this to be maybe you want to find a little movement here, you could tent the hands, maybe bringing the hands up onto the fingertips, just giving yourself another inch or two, and maybe some gentle swing side to side. That feels a little intense for me right now, just because I do have some low back sensitivity right now due to some physical activity I've done over the last few days. So I'm gonna chill out on the side to side, but sometimes that can feel really, really good. So we are holding this for a significant amount of time. We're letting the knees hang heavy, and we're continuing to ground down towards the sits bones. And then we're really just allowing the upper body to release as much as we can. If it does feel okay to let the body hover and just let gravity do the work, feel free to stay with that. Or if gravity is working just a little too hard for you tonight and you want to bring in some support, use props to support that however you'd like. Continue to check in with the breath and really breathe into the sensations in the hip. The hips and the low back are a typical place where we store tension, where we store stress, and just sometimes by our posture, we tend to carry a lot of our weight in our low back and hips, especially women. Our center of gravity is in our hips, so we tend to carry a lot around there. The other typical place is up in the shoulders and the neck. That is typically a tighter place for men. Their center of gravity is up there, but of course, it can vary person to person, situation to situation. But really stay aware to how this is feeling in the body.
And especially as we hold these poses longer, in the kind of yin style that we are practicing in this pose, this extended hold of not your extreme forward fold. So I don't want you to come to your full flexibility here. I want you to maybe be about half and then just kind of let gravity kind of do some work there. And sometimes there is a natural release and an invitation for the body to move deeper into the pose. Now, sometimes that can take us too deep. That can, go to a place where we might be doing harm to the body. So continue to check in. While we do want to find stillness in the body, we don't want to feel like we're stuck or get to a panicked point. I've heard some people say, in Restore Yin, they're afraid that they don't know how to get out or that they won't be able to get out of a pose because they have held it for so long and have gone so deep. So I don't want any of that. Let's avoid feeling like we're stuck or feeling like we're going to injure ourselves. And just kind of play with that edge of challenging and staying aware. So just finding that balance. We'll take just about 3 more rounds of breath here. Beautiful work. Now when you feel ready, come out nice and slow. Take your time, articulating through each vertebra, maybe walking the hands back. Nice and slow, head stacking very last. And then be gentle with yourself. Maybe use the hands to draw the knees up towards the chest, planting the feet. And then bringing the hands back behind you. Fingers, could be pointing towards you. They could be turned out, whatever feels good here. And then we'll just take some windshield wipers side to side. You can adjust the hips, the tilt of the pelvis as needed. And you can even, if you're sitting on a cushion and may not be getting a stronger connection towards the ground, you can go ahead and remove that blanket just for a minute. And as you rock the knees side to side, really focus on that pressure that you're getting through the glutes, through the booty, because this can also give you a nice little booty massage as it releases through the hips, through the low back. Kind of pay attention to that, and we'll come back to that. We'll investigate. How about that? We'll investigate that sensation after our second round. So we're just resetting here. If it would feel good, you could stretch out through the legs and shake them out. If you could even come up into a reverse tabletop, that is kind of an active pose. If that feels a little counterintuitive to restore, skip it. But just a little counter stretch this way, planting the feet underneath the hips, planting the hands, opening up through the chest as you lift through the hips. Or really just anything else that would feel good here. All right, we'll take a really good counter stretch after our second side to kind of help out with our low back stuff. All right, so whenever you feel ready, we're just gonna set that up on the other side. So this round, we're gonna bring the right heel in first, and then bringing in the left. And again, it's just kind of a loose sitting here, we're not in full-on cobbler's pose with the bottoms of the feet touching, and we're not in that extreme bend of the knee in our, crisscross applesauce is what I call it when I teach kids yoga. Just this really easy seat or, so we're kind of mixing the two here. There's a softer angle on the knees, but again, that right heel is in first. And there's some space between the root, your pelvic bones and your heels. And again, this is where you may want to bring in a blanket or some pillows to give that little lift in the booty, creating more space as you fold forward. And then having whatever configurations of props you want in the front, so that as you lower down, you can, maybe find your props. If you don't have any, again, you can, use the hands towards the ground or even the hands on the legs, and you can release the head down, maybe start to find a little rounding in the upper back, depending on your level of flexibility, but don't feel like you have to fold forward all the way. So again, you can come here, you could start to walk the hands forward. Maybe the hands can come up onto your cushion, stack of pillows, blocks, books, something like that. And just to create some space there for those that are folding forward a little more and want to have a little more space in the torso area. And as we release our head down, if it would feel good to bring a prop in for the head, feel free to take that. Your choice in the shoulders, if you want it a little more passive, you could turn the palms up, getting a nice receptive pose here, really releasing through the upper back and the shoulders. If you want a little more activity, maybe tenting up on the hands and bringing a little rocking side to side. Again, that's not feeling awesome for me today, so I'm gonna skip that. And just coming to whatever level till you feel sensation, again, on the low back and down into the glutes, kind of the outside of the booty, maybe a little on the outside of the hips, kind of this whole area in general. So for some of us, we won't need to go very far to feel that sensation. So listen to the body. Don't force anything. Don't feel like, oh, well, I went this far on the first side, I need to go that far on the second side. Just let it be. Let each side be its own thing. One of my favorite ways of describing it was a girlfriend said this. She was referring to her eyebrows and the fact that she could, when she was drawing them in, she could never get them symmetrical. She says that she has to remind herself that they're sisters, not twins. And it made me giggle, but it's also very true to our yoga practice. We work both sides to bring balance. And we can, we approach them similarly because they live in the same family, each side of the body. But we shouldn't expect both sides to perform the same. We shouldn't expect complete symmetry in our body because that doesn't exist for various amounts of reasons. So we just want to approach each side as a new experience, keeping in mind the experience of the first side and how that felt. But more of kind of a reference point to just kind of see like, all right, this is one way of feeling it, and on this side, this is another way of experiencing it. So just continue to check in, and especially as we hold this pose longer, we do tend to be tighter in our dominant side versus the other, so you may notice that. And sometimes it's just the way we're built, that there are differences in each side, those asymmetries, those imbalances. Continue to connect to the breath and tune into the sensation in the body. And this whole practice is gathering information. Gathering information about the body, about the breath, about the thoughts. Gathering information about the mind-body connection. Gathering information about mindfulness versus when we let our thoughts wander. As we move through our practice with intention, or if we are moving through our practice distracted, noticing the differences there. So, each yoga practice is such an individualized experience and exploration. And not just in the mind, but in the body. And it's simply an opportunity for us to practice. Practice feeling the sensations in our bodies. Practice noticing the impact of our thoughts. Noticing the power in the breath. Again, as we continue to hold poses longer, don't feel like you're stuck. We do want to find a sense of stillness in the pose, but definitely don't want you to feel like, you're stuck and you can't get out, or you can't move without messing it up. Listen to your body. If you need to come out, come out. If you need to wiggle and move, do it. This is definitely feeling a little more intense on my left side. Notice if in your attempt to fold forward further, if the sits bones or the booty has started to lift off the ground. We want to ground those sits bones back. It can even help if you do have your hands on the ground or on a prop to even kind of press back. Kind of a similar idea of like when we're in downward dog, about pressing into the hands to lengthen through the spine and send the sits bones up. It's kind of similar to that, pressing through the hands to send the sits bones down towards the ground. We'll take about 3 more rounds of breath on this side. Awesome. When you feel ready, nice and slow, start to walk the hands up and vertebra by vertebra. Super slow. Coming up all the way to the top. And being gentle with yourself and using the hands to draw the knees up. If those windshield wipers felt good here, bringing the hands back behind you, letting the knees drop side to side. Feel free to take those. You could revisit the seated cat-cow, bringing the hands to the knees, working through that spinal flexion, arching and rounding. You could bring back torso circles if that feels good here. And you could take reverse tabletop if that doesn't feel too counterintuitive to a restored practice. Ooh-wee. Awesome. And then when you feel ready, as promised, let's explore that little booty massage. So really firmly connecting down to the sits bones, maybe remove any flesh from, in between you and the ground. And then we're going to plant the feet, drawing the knees in. Bring the hands back behind you as kind of kickstands for some support. And you can either keep the feet on the ground or lift the feet up. And then we're going to roll over to the right side, coming onto the right side glute. And you might need to maneuver around a little bit to find that sweet spot. If you really want to get into it, you can find like a lacrosse ball or almost like squishy, like a racket ball, and roll around on that. That's more pointed sensation. But this, you might be able to get a little sensation circling around using the ground as your masseur, the ground in your body. And then when you're ready, just switching it over to the other cheek. Oh, there's a spot. So you might kind of need to roll around a little bit. Ooh, but if you got some sensation there, you can definitely feel it. You can also do this on a foam roller. That's one of my favorites. All righty. Cool. When you're ready, we're going to take it all the way down to the back. So your choice how you want to get there. We're going to keep the knees bent. Awesome work. So you're going to walk the heels in towards the glutes. And we're just going to work through the pelvis a little bit. You know, we just folded forward, pretty extreme, and kind of want to loosen that up a little bit. So with the feet planted on the ground, really root down towards all four corners of the feet. Lift up through the toes, spread them out, and then set them back down. And then bring a puffing up of the chest as you tuck the tops of the shoulders underneath, drawing the shoulder blades together, kind of like you're cupping the back of the heart with the shoulder blades. Arms can come alongside the body. So we're exaggerating this natural curvature of the spine here. We're pressing into the feet, nice and slow. We're going to start to lift through the hips as we tuck the tailbone down. So as you lift, we're kind of scooping with the tailbone and then starting to lead with the hip flexors, coming up to a bridge pose. So we're lifting through the hips, lifting through the chest. Chest comes towards the chin, chin lifts up towards the ceiling. Now this is a pretty active pose, bridge pose here. You're welcome to stay here, maybe working through some pelvic tilts, so maybe exhaling to lower down, or I guess pelvic lifts. Inhaling to scoop and lift up. Ooh, that expiration actually feels really good. So if you want to take a few rounds like that, and then we are going to settle into a supported bridge. So we're gonna grab either our bolster, block, cushion, pillow, blanket, whatever we've got handy. We want to bring that underneath the pelvis so that as we set the pelvis down, the hips are lifting higher than the heart. So, you know, we don't have to come very far. We definitely don't have to come into full wheel, you know, full on back bend here. But just lifting the hips, bringing some support underneath the pelvis so that we can then relax through the low back, kind of get a little traction, a little release through the low back as we stretch through the hip flexors. Ah, that actually feels really, really good. One thing that you can play with while you're here, actually, I'm not sure if you can do it from, no, just kidding. I'll show you that in a minute. A way that we can manually kind of move the pelvis down to decompress through the low back. I'll show you that after we get out of this pose. But if this is feeling awesome, feel free to stay here. This feels great. This is a nice release for the low back. If this is feeling awesome as a hip flexor stretch, and maybe you want to explore that a little more, you can start to extend, you know, maybe one leg at a time out along the ground, switching it out, kind of exploring. Maybe both legs eventually extend out, maybe not all the way, maybe they go all the way. Noting that the more they extend, the more arch that's going to bring in the more extreme of a back bend. So just stay in mind of how that's feeling in the low back. So we've got this option with the legs extended. We've got supported bridge. Just the hips releasing down. Another nice way to release through the low back, which we'll revisit this too, is to start to draw the knees in towards the chest, lifting the feet up off the ground. And then if it would feel good, maybe extending the legs up towards the sky, finding a supported shoulder stance. Oh, that feels really good, actually. This can kind of help the tops of the femurs, you know, sink into the hip sockets and help the hips kind of release. It's going to be a really good release for the low back. That's where I'm feeling it. You can kind of let the legs hang out. You can explore, maybe just spreading out through the toes or pointing and flexing through the ankles, rolling out through the feet. Or you could, you know, bring in larger movements, maybe kicking through the legs or circling them out or whatever would feel good here. You can kind of start to bring the toes overhead to deepen the low back stretch here. So that's kind of simulating a forward fold, but a little different because, you know, we're on the back instead of on the legs. So lots of exploration here if you want it, or find stillness in a pose that just feels yummy, yummy, yummy. We'll be here in this exploration for about another minute, so about another 10 or so breaths. Connect to the breath. Feel the sensations in the body. Let the sensations guide your exploration. Trust the teacher within. Trust the sensations in the body and your body's response to those sensations. Awesome. And whenever you feel ready, wherever the legs happen to be, if they're not, bend the knees, plant the feet. Find that solid connection. Press into the feet, press into the shoulders. Engage in the core for support as you lift up through the hips, just high enough to slide your prop out from underneath. And then nice and slow as you scoop through the tailbone, lowering vertebrae by vertebrae down one at a time. Oh, that feels good. Take a moment to just kind of chill out here in a nice neutral spine. And any movements that would feel good, maybe dropping knees side to side, maybe drawing the knees in towards the chest. You could circle out through the knees if you'd like. All right, now the next pose we're going to take a reclined pigeon pose. We're not going to hold it for super long because I am going to get us into a supported king pigeon pose. This is a good warm-up, and also keep in mind that as we make our way towards our supported king pigeon pose, it can be a little more extreme on the hips and on the back, on the legs, on the knees, all of it. It can just be more extreme. Know that this is always an option. So as I said, we won't be here for too long, but just as a nice way to prepare the hips for our pigeon. With the knees bent, we're going to extend the right leg up towards the sky. Flex the toes back and then externally rotate the toes out towards the right. So that moves the whole leg so that you're opening up through the hip girdle. Bend the knee, cross the right ankle on the left knee, and open up through that right knee. You could bring the right hand to the right knee to gently press it open if that feels good here. So I'll give you this view, right leg extended, turn it out to the side as you flex the toes back, bend the knee, cross the ankle, knee opens up to the right. Awesome. Your right hand can come to the thigh to gently press it open. You can stay here with the left leg on the ground. You could also start to draw the left knee in towards the chest. The foot could rest on a prop of sorts, or you could interlace the hands behind the knee. You could also bring in some gentle rocking side to side for some exploration, or continue to draw the left knee towards the chest. So again, we're getting sensation on the outside of that right hip. We're flexing the right toes back. Fantastic work. As I said, we won't be here long, just about 5 more rounds of breath. Awesome work. When you feel ready, if that left foot was raised, go ahead and release it down. Uncross through the legs. Set the right foot down, and maybe, any movements that would feel good. Again, maybe windshield wipers, maybe knees in towards the chest, maybe some raising up into bridge, whatever would feel good there. And then we'll just switch it out to the other side. So whenever you feel ready, knees bent, left leg extends, flex the toes back, rotate the left toes out towards the left, bend the knee, cross the ankle, and that left knee opens up. Again, left hand could come to the left knee to gently press it open. That right foot could stay on the ground. Right knee could raise up. That right foot could plant on a prop, or toes flex back, shin parallel to the ground as hands interlace between or underneath the knee. You could bring in some gentle rocking if that sensation feels good in the outside of the left knee or left hip. You could also draw right knee towards right shoulder. And we're flexing the left toes back. If the right toes are raised, they're flexed back as well. The hips are squared, so we're lengthening through the tailbone. And we've got about 5 rounds of breath here. Awesome work. When you're ready, releasing right foot down, uncrossing. Shake it out, move it out, whatever you'd like to do. Now we'll take this into a supported king pigeon, so we'll still be using props if you've got them. If you know that it doesn't work for your body, stay on your back, take another round of reclined pigeon. That's what we just did. So again, starting with the right leg extended, flex toes back, rotate leg, and then cross right ankle over left knee. Now if you do want to come into a full king pigeon, we're going to start from hands and knees, so you're going to want to make your way up. Bolster is my all-time favorite prop for this, but if you don't have a bolster, you can take a stack of pillows, a rolled up blanket, something. So this is going to fill in the space between your hips and the ground. So that's why I like the bolster, because I have super tight hips. So this gives me enough. This fills the gap, if you will. So if you're a little more open in the hips, maybe just a blanket or a block would work. And then I like to work with, blanket, block, stack of books in front of me as well. And I will show you why. So from hands and knees, we're going to step the right foot over the bolster, and then we're going to start to toe heel the right foot over towards the left side of the mat. Then we're going to send that right knee forward and over towards the right. So we're creating that bend in the knee. We're flexing the left toes back. Now there's a common cue to bring the shin parallel to the front of the mat. Not everyone's body's built that way. Mine isn't. So I bring my knee further forward so that my leg's at almost a 45-degree angle. What's most important here is that we square through the hips so that back leg is extending out directly behind us. Right hip is drawing back, left hip shifting forward, and our prop is supporting our hips. Our hips are nice and squared. All right, so right toes are flexing back. And we're imagining, so the squaring of the hips, we're either drawing the right hip back, left hip forward, or imagine squeezing the knees together like we're trying to bunch up our mat in the middle of, or between the knees. And then this is, I like to have the props here, because this is your choice if you want to stay up in a more active back bend, little king pigeon here. You can kick the heel in towards the glute, coming into getting a quad stretch. Maybe you reach back for the foot. You could also start to bow forward, maybe coming down, towards your blocks or whatever you've got going on here, taking it nice and slow. And as we fold forward, if you want to take that humble pigeon, we still want that activation and support. So we're not just collapsing into a dead pigeon here. The hips are nice and squared, so the temptation is to roll onto the right side of the hip. Drive that left hip down. Use that support there. So even though this is a supported pose, we're still pretty active here. You know, there's a lot of sensation. I'm feeling a lot on the outside of that right hip again. If you're up in king pigeon, you'll probably be feeling a little bit in the low back and the glute and in the hamstring. So be in your exploration. Stay aware of what comes up for you. Continue to connect to your breath. So again, we're either in supported king pigeon with the right foot forward, or we're on our backs in our reclined pigeon, right ankle crossed over left, right knee opening up. And in whichever variation of this pose you're taking, notice where you can release. Notice if you're holding any tension in the neck or in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the eyes, around the tongue. Notice where you can soften without losing that activation through the hips if you're in your supported king pigeon. We'll take about another 10 rounds of breath here, so about another minute. The breath. Listen to the body. And see if you can soften for the last final rounds of breath. Whenever you feel ready, whichever variation you're in, take it nice and slow coming out. Your choice of how you want to transition from side to side. Maybe you want to bring, if you're king pigeon, bringing that left leg forward, or you could send that right leg back. Taking any movements, any stretches, any counter stretches between sides that would feel good, feel free. All right, and when you're ready, we'll set up our pigeon on the other side. So again, you have that option for reclined pigeon on the back. Left leg extends up, flex toes back, rotate the toes out towards the left, then cross left ankle over right knee as it bends. And if you want to take your supported king pigeon on the other side, this time bringing the left foot forward over your bolster or your prop, whatever kind of cushion, pillow, blanket action you got going on here. We're going to bring that left foot all the way over towards the right, and then with a bend in the knee, we're going to start to bring that left knee over towards the left. Flexing those left toes back. And again, the most important thing is keeping the hips squared here. So that right leg is out directly behind us. The right hip bone is driving down towards the ground. We're drawing the left hip bone back as the right hip bone shifts forward so the hips are nice and squared. You can also imagine that like we're trying to draw the knees together and scrunch up our mat. Now again, we've got our cushion. This is where the support comes in, filling in that space between you and the ground. And we've got those blocks or whatever prop in front of us, so maybe coming down into a more humble pigeon, keeping that activation, so we're not just dropping into a dead pigeon. Or staying up, more active back bend here in a king pigeon. You could even kick the heel in towards the glute, maybe reaching back for the foot, taking it into a quad stretch. Breathing into it. Again, approaching each side as individuals. Their own wants and needs, their own experiences. Noticing if you can soften anywhere. And now for those of us who maybe have more open hips, sorry, I should have said this on the first round. If the hips, pretty much go all the way to the ground, or you don't really need any filler between you and the earth, there's a good chance that you may be hypermobile. And if you do know that you're hypermobile in the hips, then the last thing that you want to do is just sink in and collapse and exploit those joints. So that same level of activation you want to keep with that drawing of the hips. So drawing that left hip back or right hip forward, or squeezing those knees together. And for those that are hypermobile, you may even want to bring maybe a lift of the pelvic floor or an activation of the perineum, that mula bandha, so that you're, instead of, you don't need to work on flexibility if you're hypermobile, that's a given. You need to work more on stability. So you want to build up those supporting muscles around the joint so that you're not just exploiting the joints by going too deep. So props then can also be your friend. Even if you can go all the way down to the earth with this, that might not be the best option for your body. So maybe putting a blanket in between you, maybe creating that little lift and support. It's all about finding that balance. Notice where you can release, relax, soften just a little bit further without losing that engagement in the hips. We're going a little over on time. We'll be in this pose for about another 5 or so breaths. And once again, as you feel ready, after your exploration of this side of the pose, feel free to make your way out however you'd like. If you are in king pigeon, you could swing that right leg forward, you could send the left leg back. Taking any movements, any counter stretches that would feel fantastic here. Now that was our final pose before our relaxation. So I do want to give you an opportunity, if there are any final movements, stretches, any final rituals that you like to do to round out your practice, to take as much time as you'd like to explore those. And then when you feel ready, we're going to make our way into our Shavasana, or our final relaxation pose. And you can really do anything in that matter. You can take any pose that would feel awesome there. Just as long as you feel like you can relax, release, and surrender into it. So it could be, traditional corpse pose, lying on the back, palms turned up, toes turned out. You can use props to support you. Since we were working on a low back stuff, one nice support for the low back in Shavasana is in corpse poses, bringing a prop or something underneath the knees, or just bending the knees and kind of letting the pelvis release. If lying on your back tonight doesn't feel awesome, don't do it. You could lie on the side, you could lie on your belly, you could take a child's pose, you could take a seated meditation. whichever position you choose to take as much time as feels right for you to get there. And exploring any final movements or stretches, maybe some twists or any movement through the spine. And whenever you find yourself in your Shavasana, your final relaxation, just allow yourself to fully let go, to fully release to this pose. To let the breath just find its natural flow, to let the body release fully, relaxing, giving yourself to the earth. And hopefully finding a little settling of the mind. As we find peace in the body, peace with the breath, it's the hope that peace in the mind can follow. Because we all have this place of internal peace that is always accessible to us. And our yoga practice connects us to that place, that inner peace, especially our Shavasana. And the more we practice connecting to that place through our yoga and mindful practices, the easier that inner peace becomes to access throughout our daily lives. So it's not always an automatic thing. It's not always a switch that you can flip, like, oh, I am at peace in my mind and body now. It's not instantaneous. But take this moment to maybe allow yourself to find it, to allow yourself to be in it, allowing yourself to settle into the peace of the present. Yourself to find that place of internal peace, even if the external environment is less than peaceful. Find that place where you've taken off all the hats, you've set aside all the different roles you play. You're able to just be exactly who and what you're supposed to be. You're not getting pulled into the past or projected into the future. You are in the peace of the present moment. Give yourself permission to be there. Give yourself permission to be here, fully, 100%, in your body, at peace with your mind, just breathing, just being.
If you do have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, I encourage you to do so. Giving yourselves at least 5 more minutes, upwards of 20. Allowing yourself to stay in this space of peace and calm. As you feel ready, I'll invite you to start to bring some movement back into your body, nice and gentle, no rush. If you are on the ground and not there, go ahead and make your way onto one side of the body. When you are there, pause for a moment in a nurturing pose. Or wherever you find yourself, just pause for a moment and offer yourself a little bit of gratitude. Gratitude for carving out this time to tend to your body, to your mind, to your spirit. Gratitude for giving yourself the gift of this self-love and self-care. Once you feel ready, gently making your way back up to a comfortable seated position, joining me back where we started. And as you arrive, I invite you to bring the hands to heart center or to find any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for joining me today in this exploration of the hips and low back. Thank you so much for joining me in my home and for allowing me to join you in yours. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.